Yeah, the session will be recorded so that if anyone needs to like watch it again, then they can watch it.
Okay, okay.
I would like to share a little bit about Puddletown Chess. So we are a registered nonprofit organization, and our mission is to build a fun and collaborative community for young chess players in Oregon. And we want to promote friendly chess competition and team collaboration among young players. My name is Ishaan, and I am one of the founders and the vice president of operations for Puddletown Chess. The other founders are Zoe and Austin Tang, whom you might have seen during our quads. So I'm an 8th grader at Stoller Middle School, and I started learning chess when I was 5 years old, and I've played in competitions since then. I enjoy traveling around the state and the continent for tournaments and meeting kids from all over the world. And I have played in many national and North American championships as well. I am very excited to share my knowledge with you in this session. And outside of chess, I like swimming, tennis, video games, music, and math. And some accomplishments I have is that I won the Oregon Middle School championship last year, and I played for Jacob Wismer Elementary School as the leader, and we won 3 years in a row. And I also led the Stoller Middle School chess team in 2021 and 2022, and we won both of those years. And I am also the night level coach for the night. I am the coach for the night level training program. Now I will introduce the topic of opening principles. There are 3 main steps to make a confident opening. They are controlling the center, having good piece development, and keeping your king safe. Those are the 3 things that we can do at the beginning of the game so that we can go into the middle game confidently. And the initial moves of a chess game have a great impact on its further development through the later stages of the middle game and the end game. Therefore, it is important to consider a set of basic opening principles without taking excessive risks or conceding too much to your opponent. We will go over the most important principles and look at examples too. And I'll walk through the principles with examples of each one. So there are 11 principles. The first 3 are that you want to develop your pieces. Because developing is basically the most important principle that you can have in a chess game in the opening. And don't move a piece before move 10. And don't develop your, they should say develop pieces rapidly. Yeah, and then don't bring your queen out early, get castled before move 10. Attack and develop towards the center, connect the rooks, and develop plans, not just pieces, and attack in the direction of your pawn structure. So now let's go into the examples. Okay. So the first 3 principles were to develop your pieces. So now we will look at examples about how to do this. In this first example, the moves made by Black will be very silly and will not happen in the actual game. But the purpose of this is to show where you might develop your pieces if your opponent did nothing at all. So we start with e4, and e4 already takes some space up in the center, which is what you want to do. Now, knight c6 is a bad move, and obviously e5 is a much better try to attack in the center. And it's also the most common reply to e4. So then if after knight c6, we can play d4. And now we have both of our pawns in the center taking up both e5 and d5, and the position's already very good for white. Now black will move back. But we're trying to observe the way that white develops his pieces in. So then we have to bring our knights out. And then we bring the other knight out, and the bishop goes on c4. So already in this position, we have all of our minor pieces developed and space in the center. Wait, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't.
Wait, why not?
Matisse, can you ask your parent, please? Others can see the screen. I think it's your setup.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have to get castled. So castling is very important. And we'll also review that rule later. And another way to develop would be queen e2 and castling queenside, and then bringing the other rook. So we want to bring our rooks to the center as well. And here is what we call the dream position. And this position is important to know, not because you're very likely to achieve it, but so that you understand what perfect development and center control looks like. And we need to always complete our development before we go off and chase our opponent's king and pieces. You have to get all of your pieces out so that they're doing something. Okay, in the second example, we will learn about not moving your pieces twice. So e4, e5, knight f3, d6, d4. And then knight takes d4. So it's okay for white to recapture with the knight because black's pawn spent 2 moves playing e5 and e takes d4, and white's knight did knight f3 and knight takes d4. So white has not lost any time by moving the knight twice. But it's usually worth the time to capture an enemy piece other than the pawn. But sometimes it's better to keep on developing your pieces and not waste time capturing pawns in the opening. If you go pawn hunting early in the game, you can get into very big trouble. The next example is also about not moving the same piece twice. So here is a position where white has just played knight b5, and it looks like you're attacking the pawn on c7. But this move was an inaccuracy because it violates one of the basic opening principles of not moving the same piece twice. Black can easily play queen f7, and it defends the pawn on c7 and open up the light squared bishop. So white has just lost the tempo, and it would have just been better for him to castle and get more of his pieces out instead of wasting a move with knight b5. And it would just get kicked out in the next move anyway, so it would be forced to go back. So this is a total waste of time. And black is clearly better here because he already has 4 of his pieces out, and we only have 3. Well, not clearly better, but already has an advantage. And we'll look at one more example of not moving the same piece twice. So this is a good move, placing his pawn in the center. And yeah, I should flip the board. Okay. So this isn't necessarily a bad move. It's actually an opening, but it lets the knight come under fire, which is definitely not what you want to happen if you're a beginner, because you can get into big trouble. So first, white kicks the knight once, and the knight is forced to move, either here or back. So if it moves to e4, then d3, now he gets kicked a second time, and then a third time, and then a fourth time, and then a fifth time, and now white is just developing his pieces too. A sixth time, and white got both of his bishops out for free and is still getting tempos on this knight, is still attacking this knight. And after f5, it may seem that you defend the knight, but f3, and now the knight is trapped. So this might happen if you move the same piece more than once in the opening. So you want to focus on your other pieces and not just one piece. You always want to get your other minor pieces out so that you can castle, and then the game will be balanced. Because here, what happened was we only moved our knight, and now we got into trouble because it's trapped. So if we were to develop our other pieces and also fight for the center, then our position would have been okay. So that goes into our next rule, which is develop your pieces rapidly. So in this position, let me remove the arrows and stuff. So it is not a secret that the main objective of the opening is development. Even though it sounds like common sense, it is not the case for many amateur players. And some players use this phase for queen checks, pawn hunts, and the launch of unprepared attacks. So after their cheap shots fail, like in 99% of the games, they end up in deep trouble, such as in this position. So let's count the amount of pieces that we have developed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, not this. So 6. And then let's count how many pieces black has developed. 1 and 2. So 6 pieces is way more than 2 pieces. And black's king is still in the center also. So his king is weak. So this position is already pretty much losing for black, even though he's up 2 pawns, because of the fact that we have such a lead in development, and black will not be able to save himself and he will not be able to catch up. So this game will easily be winning for white. Matisse, do you have a question?
Yes, but doesn't castling count as a developing move?
Yes, because you bring your rook out as well.
Yeah, but the rook ended up on f1, so that's why I think castling actually counts as a 7th.
It counts as a what?
A 7th, because the rook ends up on
Yeah.
the f file when castling, and then move there to develop it, and the king also counts as a developing move.
Yeah, but
Yeah, and also this knight can't develop soon because, or else our queen can just take this bishop and give checkmate.
that's the
So
problem.
this knight is pretty much stuck there until this bishop either gets another defender or it won't be checkmate. Well, technically he does need another defender, or else we can just capture it.
Yeah. So
and
black
be
is
ahead
already in huge trouble.
a point.
Yeah. And then the next rule is don't bring your queen out early. Well, you may think that when you bring your queen out, you're also developing a piece. But you have to remember that the queen is the most valuable piece. So you can't afford to lose her early on in the game. So that means that your opponent has 14 pieces, 8 pawns, and then 2 rooks, and 4 minor pieces. So if you bring your
That
queen out-
equals 16.
well, black has king and a queen, which are worth like equal to our queen. So basically, black has 14 pieces, which are worth less than the queen. So if you bring your queen out early on, your opponent can develop his pieces and attack your queen at the same time. Let's see this example. D4. Now the queen has moved once, but now it is forced to move a second time. So now the queen has moved twice, and after black gets his other knight out, he now has a lead in development because he has 2 pieces that are developed and we only have 1. So white has lost the advantage of the first move, and now black has a small advantage now. So this is what you don't want to do. You want to develop your minor pieces first because they are worth less. And then after you get your rooks out, then you can get the queen out. So that's not as vulnerable as it is in this position. We'll look at another example of not moving your queen out early. E4, E5, bishop C4, knight C6, queen H5. This is known as the 4-move checkmate. But if your opponent knows what to do, then it's a really bad opening. So G6. G6 stopped the queen from attacking F7, so there's no more checkmate anymore. So queen F3, you're still trying to give a checkmate on F7, but black will just block. And now there's no more checkmate. Well, the idea behind G4 is to play G5. So let's say they just waste a move. G5, and the knight has to move. But if the knight moves, then queen takes F7 is checkmate. So here, black will lose a piece. But of course, black won't allow that, which is why it's a mistake. Knight D4. And knight D4 attacks C2 and the queen. So this goes under example of not moving your queen out early. The queen is a very vulnerable piece, and it's already being attacked on move 5. We have to defend the pawn, so we have to go back. And now D5. The idea behind D5 is that it opens up the line for the bishop, so that after E takes D5, bishop takes G4. And look at our position. We have 3 pieces that are developed versus 1 piece. And it's still equal material. We have not lost any material. So after F3, knight E4 is a nice move because queen H4 and queen F2 comes in after F takes G4. And this knight is uncapturable because the pin on the queen by the bishop. So if white was to play bishop E2, well then bishop takes E2, knight takes E2, knight F3, king F1, and queen takes D5. So now it is black who's up a pawn and has a huge lead in development. And if knight E2, if knight E2, well then there's mate in 2 with knight F3, king F1, and bishop H3. So this is why the 4-move checkmate or just moving your queen out early in general is a bad idea. You can get into trouble really fast and easily. So Matisse, do you have a question or comment? Okay, does anyone else have any questions on this?
Okay, so I forgot I was muted.
Oh.
The knight moved to E7. There's a story about this. I didn't play this game, but it was in the video that I watched about chess. where the knight moved to e7 in a particular position, and then f5 to block the mate, and then it got pressured by the g pawn, and then it had to go back to h6 to defend, and then eventually it had to come all the way back to this square to defend, and eventually later in that episode, all black's pieces on move number 19 were on the back row.
Oh. Well, was that after like white tried to play the 4-move checkmate?
No, only white tried to play 4-move checkmate, and eventually all of black's pieces were back. White had a winning position, he brought more pieces out, and then eventually went on to win the game.
Okay, well that means that black played pretty bad, and because the 4-move checkmate is not a good opening. Okay, Asher, do you have a
But
question?
white played it and managed to win later, but not by 4-move checkmate. Actually, since black pieces were such in a bad spot, his pawns were weak.
Okay, Asher, do you have a question?
In the Jacob Wismer thing, I got a Jacob Wismer.
Okay.
I got a Jacob Wismer.
Nice. I used to go to Jacob Whisper too. Okay, so are there any other questions on what we've covered so far? No? Okay. So the next rule that we have to learn about is castling and before move number 10. So putting the king to safety is one of the priorities of the opening. So, and keep in mind that contrary to a popular belief, it is much harder to attack the castled king than if it is in the center. And at the same time, when you castle, it allows you to connect the rooks, which allows them to work more efficiently. So you should always castle early in your chess games, because following these simple rules will save you a handful of games. So now we'll look at an example of castling before move 10. E4, C6, D4, D5. This is known as the Caro-Kann defense. Queen D3. So here you might think, well, you moved your queen out. Well, it can't even be attacked right now, so it's a fine move here. If it's in the center, though, it's easy to be attacked by knights or bishops. But on D3, it's fine on that square. So E5. So, well, you might think, well, you can just take that pawn for free. But no, Queen A5. So Queen A5 forks the king and the pawn, so you can take it next move. Okay, so let's count. We have 3 developed pieces, and black only has 2. Okay, now we have 4. The rook, the queen, the bishop, and the knight. Okay, well, you might think, oh, queen takes e4 or knight takes e4, lose our knight. But white has castled already, while black's king is looking a little vulnerable in the center. So black should really be thinking about getting his king to safety with bishop e7. And after rook e1 castle, black survives. But black got greedy and captured the knight on e4. And now white has a very nice knockout blow. Queen d8. The idea behind queen d8 is, even though you lose your queen, bishop g5. So it's a double check, which means you cannot block because the king's still in check. So you have 2 moves, either e8 or c7. If you go to c7, bishop d8 is mate, because the rook cuts off d6 and d7, and the bishop cuts off b6. So that's
called Pillsbury's mate.
And if king e8, then rook d8 is mate. All of the squares are cut off by the
called the Oprah mate or the Morphe mate.
Yeah. So this is a very fast mate. And that can happen if your opponent plays like this exact line. This is just like a really nice line which Morphe played, I think. So this is what can happen if you castle quickly, and if your opponent's king is still in the center. So this probably won't happen in your games, but if you castle early and your opponent doesn't, then you can get a very strong attack in the center with your rook. So like, if you didn't have queen d8, then rook e1 would have been good. Rook e1 would have been a good move to kind of laser down the e file. Uh, okay, are there? Yeah, Matisse, you have a question?
Another idea is to use the queen to capture the knight, and then after the queen takes, we can move our rook to e1, and the queen is pinned to the king. He can try to defend the queen, but then we'll just attack it again. Even though rooks are worth less than queens, we'll lose a rook for a queen, and we already lost our queen, so yeah. But we can keep finding ways to attack it, since that queen will have to stay there forever, or the king can just, and when the king moves, he'll no longer be able to castle.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we will eventually get our rooks connected, and this queen will eventually be a goner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
Even after f6, f4, it is a goner after those moves. Goner. Well, actually, before we take the queen, we'll have to defend the rook first, I think.
Okay, we have to keep moving, sorry. Okay, are there any other questions on castling before move 10? No? Okay. Okay.
Are we gonna see example when someone castles after move 10?
No. Okay, but the next example is developing towards the center. Okay, so this is not as common as e4, but it's still a perfectly fine way to play. This is also a very common response. So unlike the position after e4, the knight on f6 is perfectly safe, and it puts pressure on the square e4. And d5 was also playable, of course. Okay, this move is really bad. So you never want to block your pieces from getting out. So it blocks the queen, it blocks the bishop, it blocks the king, and it weakens the defense of the d pawn. So this isn't a losing move. However, black has a really nice trick that he can follow up with. So black can play e5. Well, okay, this move was not the only way to attack the center or to try and expose white's last knight move, but it's the most fancy and fun move. So d5 would have been good also. It controls e4 so that white can't play it himself, and then black already has a nice position. Black is already in the driver's seat here because he has easy development with his bishop and white does not. So let's see what happens after we take on e5. Why not? Knight g4. Okay, so knight g4 attacks this pawn, and many beginners will want to defend the pawns which they lose. But after ace3, yeah, you have a question, Matisse?
I I saw this game in another episode, and people in that episode, people said it was the shortest game in between two chess masters.
Yeah. So the problem with this move is that it allows black a killer blow, which fully exposes the issues with white's development, which was caused by knight d2. So, let me ask you everyone a question. So you can answer in the private chat. So what do you think? What do you think black should play here? You all can just private chat me your message. Your answer. I'll give you guys a minute.
What's the hint?
You
I
just have
also
to-
I don't think that are sure we should have a hand.
I'll explain the move. So it's kind of hard to see.
Hint.
Kind of hard to see, but
Not for me.
What's the
And it's
hint?
all because
more
of
seconds.
and
What's the hint?
the hint is that you just have to play a really nice move. Okay, time's up.
I didn't have time.
It's okay, Asher. So I saw a lot of people saying queen h4, and I saw a couple people saying knight takes e5. So those are fine moves. Like knight takes e5 is always okay, because you just get the pawn back, and you also have a knight in the center, and knights are really good when they're placed in the center.
how about my answer?
Yeah, I'll get to you. So queen h4. Yeah, I know the idea is that after h6 g4, queen takes h1. But when you move the queen to h4, white can just play g3 and kick your queen out. So after queen h5, just try and like keep the pin on the rook. Well, then bishop g2 and the knight. Wait, no. Yeah, bishop g2 is fine. So then the knight has to move. It will probably capture this pawn, but then knight f3, and then I don't know. White's back in the game. It's not winning for black anymore. So the correct move was knight to e3. And the idea is knight d3 is that, well, you have to take, or else your queen would be trapped and would be taken next move. So what happens after you take? Well, queen h4. And now the king has nowhere to go. And the only move is to block. And then queen takes g3 is checkmate. So this is a pretty cool trick. So the lesson from this was don't develop your knight to a passive square without a really good reason.
How many minutes or hours is this class?
Why do you want to know?
I don't know. I just want to.
Okay, it should end around 7. It's like, maybe around 20 more minutes, or maybe longer. Okay, so let's go to the next one, which is connecting your rooks. So in this position, no, first let me explain what it means to connect your rooks. So by connecting,
How about my
by connecting your rooks, we mean clearing the space between them so that they can protect each other. So the rooks are connected in this position. So you can do this by moving all your pieces off the back rank and castling your king. when your pieces, no, having the back rank clear means that your rooks can easily move back and forth along it. So either for defensive purposes or to support a pawn push. And usually placing a rook opposite of the enemy queen is a good idea, even if there are currently pieces in the way. So here, this pawn is pinned because if it takes, rook takes d8, wins the queen. So you can't do that. So let's see what happens after knight takes e5. Knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5. So we have just won a minor piece because the pawn can't capture back. The pawn can't recapture, so black has just lost a piece. Matisse, well, what's your question or comment?
How about any tree? My answer for the
Yeah.
last puzzle.
Yeah, your answer was correct.
And also, I only see 2 minor pieces for white and 2 minor pieces for black.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, you're right. I think I forgot to add a piece.
Yeah, but white is positionally better because his rooks are connected and
Yeah.
black is
Yeah.
underdeveloped
That's true. So
because
even though
of this,
like
yeah, and this rook on a1 is considerably not, even though it doesn't look like it's developed because it's not off its starting square, it's actually in good position to attack on the queen side since white's pieces are coalescing on the queen side. The size of A to the D files.
okay, we have to keep moving. So yeah. Okay. So the next principle is to develop plans, not just pieces.
I
So-
am very pacific.
So e4 attacks the center. E5, counter attacking the center. Knight f3, attacking the e5 pawn. Knight c6, defending the e5 pawn. Bishop b5, that attacks the c6 knight, and which in turn increases the attack on the e5 pawn because the knight on c6 is defending it. A6, indirectly defending the e5 pawn because if white plays bishop takes c6, he'll respond with d takes c6, and after knight takes e5, queen d4 double attacks the pawn and the knight, and he will win back the pawn. So knight f6, wait no, bishop a4. White retreats the bishop to safety. Knight f6, attacking the e4 pawn. Castling, indirectly defending the e4 pawn. Because if black captures with the f6 knight, we will use the open e-file against black's king, like with rook e1. So rook e1, defending the e4 pawn. Also black played bishop e7. b5, stopping white from capturing the knight on c6 and then capturing on e5. Moving the bishop to safety. Finally, safeguarding the king. So this is Grandmaster theory, called the Roy Lopez. So, and every move that was played, every developing move that was played was to attack a piece or with some kind of clear purpose. So you can't just develop your pieces because you're developing them. You have to also make plans behind them. So like every move that was played, like e4 attacking the center, e5 counterattacking the center, knight f3 attacking the pawn, knight c6 defending the pawn. So like this is how you should play the opening. You should always like just don't play blind moves, because what would happen if like you played wait, let me go back. So what would happen if you played bishop c5? Well, knight takes e5, just winning a pawn for free. So you always have to be thinking, what is the plan behind the move? And you
This
can't
is
just
the
make
most common variation. The most common 2 moves, first moves in chess.
Yes,
E4,
that-
E5,
yeah.
and F3 and C6.
Yeah. Okay, the next rule is to develop your knights first. So
I
there-
do that.
e4, e5, knight of queen, knight of 6, knight c3. So there are many reasons to develop the knights before the bishop. The first reason is that the knight is a short range piece, which means that it can only control the nearby squares. So if a knight is not developed, its effectiveness is close to zero. And at the same time, a bishop is a long range piece and can control many squares, even from its starting square. So that's the reason why typically you would want to develop your knights first. Even though in a lot of openings it doesn't really matter, but I think for beginners, developing the knights first is better than moving the bishops out first. Okay, now our next rule is don't make unneeded pawn moves. So here in this position, we can see, well, we can castle next move or capture this knight or check black's king. But white chose to play h3. So the rule is that you shouldn't spend valuable time in the opening making unnecessary pawn moves. And generally speaking, you should only make pawn moves when they're needed to develop pieces, like central pawns, fianchetto, etc. So especially avoid prophylactic pawn pushes because they don't do anything in the opening. So white just played an unforced pawn move to h3, and that is just a waste of a move. And in the opening, it's very important that you have to develop your pieces, including castling and bring your queen out. So white could have just castled or played knight takes d5, which is a decent move, or queen e2 to check the black king. Those are all good moves. Matisse, we have to give other people a chance to ask questions or comments, so I'll answer your question at the end, okay?
Okay.
Satvik, do you have a question? I can't hear you. Uh, is your mic working? Um, okay, come back later and try and fix your mic, and then I can answer your question later, okay? Sorry.
My question.
Okay. Now we'll go into like of avoiding exchanging a developed piece for an undeveloped for an undeveloped piece of the opponent. So in order to develop a piece, you invest a valuable chess resource, which is time. If you exchange a well positioned piece for an undeveloped counterpart, you are losing tempos, and that's definitely something you want to avoid in the opening. So in this position, it is not a good idea for white to play bishop takes b8 because he will lose a tempo. This bishop has already moved once, and it does not need to move again for a knight to capture a knight which has not moved once. So this would be a big waste of time, and it would not be good. Yeah, Satvik, is your mic working now?
Okay, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was telling you, like, on the last puzzle, like maybe white has played h3 to block the threat of bishop g4, like pinning the knight on the last game.
Okay.
He might be playing h3 to block the threat of bishop g4 and pinning the knight.
Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. But let's say you castle bishop g4, but then now you can play h3 because it gains a tempo.
Oh yeah.
So now you would have to like move back or move to h5. If he moves to h5, probably you can play g4 and his
Yeah.
bishop trapped. So that won't work. So like he won't want to play bishop g4 anyway, because you'll just play h3 and gain the tempo then. So then after this, h3 won't be a waste of time.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why. So later when you like need to wait, then you can play h3 if you don't have any other improving moves. So yeah, that's basically why. Yeah, that was a good question. So yeah, you should never develop a piece and then capture something which hasn't been developed yet, because it just wastes precious time, especially in the opening. Yeah, Matisse.
About the last puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
h3 before bishop g4, black's queen and dark square bishop, and maybe even rook can come and invade on the h2 square if white castles.
How?
Like the queen is already on the right side of the attack. Black can maneuver his pieces to make a checkmate because of the weakening of h3. And there's some ideas where after white castles, black sacrifices on the h3 pawn with the light square bishop.
I don't think that'll probably happen. I mean, this bishop can't really get here because of the knight. This knight can't get here because of the h pawn. So white doesn't have to worry about castling. And in the worst case, he can just castle queenside.
Yeah, but that might happen. Who knows?
But probably not if you know how to defend your king. So, okay, the next rule is to control more space. So in this position, white has a space advantage. So the spatial advantage is a very important aspect of chess. And generally speaking, a player that possesses a spatial advantage has control of the game. Like in this position, white has control of the game. Space allows you to much more efficiently coordinate the pieces for both attacking and defending purposes, and at the same time preventing your opponent from doing that. So notice how white has advanced his pawns to occupy more space. Now he has all of the space to put his pieces, and then he can think of attacking on this side or on this side. He has two options. And white has complete control already after only 3 moves. Okay, so the next rule is to not make too many pawn moves. So e4, e5. So h3. So it's kind of like not making unneeded pawn moves. So this is very unneeded. It doesn't help white develop any pieces. So it has to be a waste of time. Knight of 6. So black already has 1 piece developed and we have 0. They're still all in the back rank. Now d3. d3 is another waste of a move, and it's bad because the bishop should be out here, but the pawn blocks this bishop from getting out. So this is really bad. And it's not developing a piece either. So knight c6. Now black has 2 pieces developed and we have none still. a3. Well, this doesn't do anything because the bishop is not going to go to b4. It's going to go to c5, in which it does. And now b3. So white here has made too many pawn moves. All the minor pieces are still on their starting squares, but black has developed 3 of their minor pieces and castled. So black already has a big lead in development and will be able to start attacking soon. White still has a long way to catch up. He still has developed this, and he still has to get castled, which is going to take too long, and black will already start attacking. Okay, so the last rule is to use all of your pieces. In this example, white has already moved all their pieces to good spots, like we saw in the dream position. Black, on the other hand, has played the opening very poorly. The queen and the knights are developed, but neither bishop can move at all, and the king is at least 3 turns from castling, like g6, bishop g7, castle. So we have 7 developed pieces, and black only has 3. So now we know that we have a huge advantage. So now we can play e5. Since we have the rook and our bishops and our knights and a pawn, this is completely fine to play, and black is already in huge trouble. So d takes e5. Bishop takes e5, keeping the file open for the rook. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5. And still, black cannot get castled. His king is stuck in the center, and the threat is knight g6, pinning the queen, and then you'll win the queen next move. So bishop e6, trying to block this and maybe get castled next move. This does not work though, because if bishop takes e6, f takes e6, and then knight g6, forking the queen and the rook. So this loses for black. Or if this, white would play knight g6 anyway and win the queen. So this is an example of using all of your pieces. So you used your bishops and your knights and your rook. This rook is also doing something. So this is how you can use all of your pieces and punish your opponent if they cannot get castled soon or if they're really behind on development. Okay, so we have went through all the examples. So are there any final questions on this before we move on? Okay. So now I will hand it over to the teacher. Wait, no, I have to do a summary actually. Never mind. Let me just summarize everything that we've learned. So, okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what we learned in this session were 3 main opening principles. Those are to develop the pieces effectively, fight for the center, and protect your king. Get your king safe. And what you should want to avoid is early queen development. We saw that this can lead to very bad positions. Moving the same piece twice, that can also lead to bad positions. And wasting time with the pawn moves. So you shouldn't make moves like ace3 in the opening especially. So yeah, that's what we've learned today. And now I would really want to tell everyone about the activities of Puddletown Chess. So what we do are tournaments. They are quads. So quads means that you play 3 other people around the same strength as you. and just 3 rounds. And we also have training programs. So there are 3 levels: the pawn, the knight, and the queen level. So yeah, I'll tell you guys more training details soon. And we have webinars every single month like this one. And it's hosted by either me, Austin, or Zoe. And we have free game analysis at either the classes or at the tournaments. So that's really great. And some upcoming events that we have is on April 2nd, we have the chess tournament, but that's already full, so you can't register for it anymore. And in April, it's not yet announced yet, but there will be another educational webinar like this one. And on March 31st, our spring training starts. It's 6:30 to 8 p.m. on every single Friday. It's 10 classes, and you are welcome to join a free trial class and see how you like it. So some details about the training program. It's a 1.5-hour class every week, and you get personalized homework. That means we send out the homework after the class, and you send us your answers. And after you send us your answers, we will correct them and send you all the answers which you got wrong and explanations on what the correct answers were. And our coaches are Zoe, Austin, and me, who are above 1950 USC rated. So we are strong chess players. Okay, now it's raffle time. So I'll hand it over to the teaching assistant. You will do the raffle.
Hi, everyone. Ishaan, can you stop sharing?
Okay.
So as you all remember, we have 3 Chess Kid Gold subscriptions to give away. Any current training students or future training students like Andrew, you'll get a license anyways as part of your training. So if you do fall on the raffle, then you can either get a chessboard or a t-shirt. So at the next tournament, or we'll reach out to you and find you something else, since you'll already have a Chess Gold membership, but others are all eligible. So let me share my screen. So you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I believe everybody's name is in here, 15 people. So I'm going to shuffle, all right?
Andrew.
Yeah, so you'll get a subscription anyways because you joined the training, Andrew. So you can either get a chessboard or a t-shirt. Next time I'll make a note and reach out to your parents.
Okay.
Akil.
Congrats. If you want a Chess Gold membership, we'll reach out. I know you know Ishaan, so we'll reach out to you. Or if you don't want that, you can get a chessboard or a t-shirt. Congrats, Ian. Are you in one of the training programs, Ian?
I don't think I am.
Okay, so would you like the Chess Gold membership, Chess Kid Gold?
I think I already have Chess Kid Gold.
Okay, so then you can have a t-shirt or a chessboard. Ishaan, can you make a note of the three people, please?
Okay.
Ian, Andrew, and who else?
And a kill.
Akhil, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I have their names written down.
Thank you. You can take over, Ishaan.
Okay. So some of you guys asked some questions before before this webinar, so I would like to answer them. So, okay, what do you do if your opponent plays the same opening as you? Where do you go from there? Okay, well, your opponent cannot, it's impossible for your opponent to play the same opening as you. So if they like copy your moves, well then that's bad for them because if you're white, you will always be a move ahead. But if you're black, you don't want to copy your opponent because they're always a move ahead. And like if they give a check, if they give check, then they can't copy you anymore. So um so if you're white, you just want to give a check, then they can't copy you anymore. They can't play the same stuff as you. And like if you use the opening principles, they will not be able to copy you either. Yeah. So if you use the opening principles and like get your pieces out and like control the center, they will not be able to copy you. What's your favorite opening and why? I would say that my favorite opening is the Sicilian. The Sicilian is a really good opening because in a lot of the lines, it's really tactical and it's easy to get like a winning position early on, early in the middle game, like before move 20. There's a lot of tricks and tactics, which is why I like to play it. How to be more aggressive in attacking. I would say, so we saw examples of what you can do if all your pieces are developed and your opponents aren't. So like if you have 7 pieces developed and your opponent only has like 2, well then all you have to do is just if you have pawns in the center, you just push them forward. If you push them forward with all your pieces supporting the center, your opponent will basically be losing if they're not castled because they can get into big trouble if your rook is on the e file and you open it. If you open up that file, then they will most likely get checkmated very soon. So if you follow the principles, uh, then you can easily punish your opponents and be aggressive. What is the best way to develop? Okay, so we saw the first example that we saw was the dream position where you developed your knights to c3 and f3, and your pawns went on d4 and e4, your bishops on f4 and or c4, and then you castled, bring your rooks to the e file and the d file, and the queen goes on e2. So if like obviously you won't be able to make all those moves in an actual game, but at least you can make some of them, like bringing your rooks to the center, bringing at least one of your bishops out, if not then both of them, and your knights can also most likely go on c3 and f3, which on those squares they attack the center very well. So yeah, I think that's the best way to develop, even though specific openings have different setups. So if you don't know any openings, you should just go with that setup. Okay, there's some more questions. So what do you do when you realize you will lose? I would say don't panic. I mean, your opponent still can blunder even though you might think they're winning. They can still blunder the game, and then it can go back into your hands and you can win. So if you panic, well then you will probably make more blunders and lose more quickly. So don't panic if you're losing, because if you're losing, there's still a chance that your opponent can blunder and then give you back your chance to win the game. I don't really play the French, so I don't know. I don't like the French either. I've never played it before. So maybe you can maybe I can get back to you on this question. I'll do some research because I've never played the French before. And yeah, how much chess do you play in a day? So if it's a school day, I won't have much time because there's homework. So I try and play 1 or 2 hours on a school day. And on the weekend, there's not much homework to do or not much to do. So I really enjoy playing chess like all day. So that's like five or more hours on the weekend because I have nothing else to do and it's really fun. In the end game, how do you block a ladder's mate? So if your opponent has 2 rooks and they're about to ladder mate you, I would say if you have a rook, then just put it on the rank of your king, and then you should be able to stop the ladder mate. Even though, but there's like no specific way to stop the ladder mate. But if you just put a rook on the back rank, then you can stop the ladder mate. If you put a rook on the same file as your king, I mean, yeah. What is your experience to cross 800 to 1,000? I would say work on tactics, okay? Working on tactics will help you a lot, as a lot of people at that level will make tactical blunders, and that would allow you to win the game really easily if you know tactics. So do a lot of puzzles on chess.com or Chess. Those are the best websites for chess puzzles. And if you do a lot of puzzles, your tactical knowledge will be really high, and then you'll be able to win a lot of games if you can use those tactics in your games. If you just know the ideas of the tactics, then you should easily be able to cross 800 and go farther than 1,000 probably. So yeah. Okay, so I've answered all the questions which you guys gave when you registered for the webinar. Are there any final questions on the opening principles? Matisse?
This isn't really a question about the opening principles, but is this game sent to our parents? Because I'm not sure I can remember that. And I don't know how to take a screenshot.
Of what?
Of like the things we should do in the opening, and when we're going to the tournament in April, and the practice on the March 31st.
Yeah, we'll send all of this information to your
We'll send
parents.
it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions? Matisse?
My coach, or another one of my chess clubs, played the French defense against me.
Do you know how to play against the French?
So I technically, I don't remember how it ended. It was like one, or I did one or lost. I'll go check right now.
Okay. So are there any other like final questions before we end? It can be about anything. No? Okay. Um, okay, I think we can end it here. So thank you all for coming to this webinar. I hope it was informative for you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And good luck when you play your games. Make sure to use the opening principles.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Right, the game where my coach for the other test club did win against me in the French defense.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye, Satvik.
Can we leave
And
now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ishaan, for the wonderful class. I liked it.
Yes.
Thank
Yes, and
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.